Evening, everybody. Welcome to the Sunday podcast. This is the show where we sit back, we relax, we enjoy conversations, we see where the conversation takes us. Like, yes, I pick a particular theme that we talk about, but it's talking about cricket, of course, but it will filter into other conversations. This is a show where you guys get to know myself, the podcast guest. We can have open conversations about anything, not just about cricket, because we want to try to connect with others as well. Other people that are maybe not 100% cricket fans only, but they love other things as well, and they can get to know our personalities because we all have different types of personalities. And a big part of people's personalities and the way they grew up is their culture and their identity. And I think that that's very important in sport as well. It's important that you have a good culture, a good identity within a team, and you have a good culture with that filters through from the management right to the coach. So that's something that we're obviously going to talk about today. And I brought on my friend Ravi, and there is a lot of things that we have in common. But that's what our topic will be about today. I'm just going to be talking about that a little later, and let's see where we go from there. So let's get into it.
Hi. Wow. Okay. Good to be on the show, man.
So, Ravi, welcome to the show. Let's get into it straight away. How are you doing? How's your weekend going?
It's been absolutely crazy busy. I think that's certainly the case when you have a 3-year-old running around the house, family, and obviously lots of sport on TV. My team, Man United, while there might be a 10-point deficit, as you will very well know, we are still in it to win it, be it by a few points at least. I think City just needs 2 points. And my brother-in-law lives with us as well. He was watching the Formula One. So Sunday is kind of like a religious day for us, but not in the traditional sense. We either watching cricket, rugby, soccer, or some Formula One on the side. So that's been pretty much what we've been busy with this weekend. I mean, if it was IPL on, we'd probably been watching that too, more than likely. But yeah, great weekend. Lots of things we got up to. And a lot of times I think about tonight's topic as well. A lot of introspection I happened to do in the afternoon, and I'm certainly looking forward to getting into it with you.
Yeah, so when we're talking about South Africa and culture and identity of teams, I think it's so important when it comes to any team that you're building, whether it be in the domestic setup, because obviously we're going to be talking a lot about domestic teams. And I think that's something that we maybe should speak about and start off with the domestic system first and foremost, because I think that that's so important when it comes to building a team that's successful. And when you talk about the different types of teams that are going to be obviously in Division One, we can talk about specifically with the different teams that are there in the new structure. I think that the identity and the culture that is within the camp, within the training sessions, all of those type of things are so important to building a winning team and to building success. If I think about someone like, I'll start off with Ashwell Prince, for example, at Western Province. He's going to want to build a certain culture. We saw when he got in as the Cobras coach initially. He spoke about wanting to give young players a chance and wanting to have a team that is driven by the youngsters and that mentality. You have a guy like Boucher, I mean, Tienes the Brain spoke to us about Titans building winning mentalities within the culture of the team. Those type of things those are the type of things that we want to talk about, and those are the type of things that you want to speak about when you're talking about culture. How important is that going to be, Ravi, from your perspective, when it comes to building a team and a winning team mentality?
Harley, that's a great question. It's absolutely critical. Peter Drucker once said, he coined the term that culture eats strategy for breakfast. So if I think back to Mark's earlier sentiments or his tactics, at least of playing smart and aggressive cricket, that's all good and well. But if your culture, your team culture, isn't 100% cohesive or understood or shared, you're going to have a significant problem with the team, and certainly you're going to have a problem with the results. And that's certainly been the case for the last 2 years. To put it in perspective, the West Indies cricket team, they've had ongoing fights with the West Indies cricket board. And I think this is testament to what's been happening in South Africa as well. And it got so toxic and volatile to the point where certain players just never showed up for international duty or just chose not to play for the West Indies. And then what happened was there was a very interesting incident that happened in the 2016 T20 World Cup in India, where the West Indies cricket team arrived on the shores of India without their kits, without their sponsors, without their equipment, nothing. And they had every reason in the world to sort of abstain and just say, you know what, we're going to just show up for the game and not play cricket. And the truth is that they all realized, they did some deep introspection and realized, hang on a second, the common enemy here isn't each other or isn't the actual tournament. It's actually our own cricket board. We actually can't stand them. They've been making one careless decision after another. And they actually bonded over that, and they formed a bit of a team cohesion and camaraderie around it. So much so, Dwayne Bravo even shared a song there, the champion song that came out of it, where they do the little dance. You know, Khalid,
Yeah.
maybe one day you will do the dance when South Africa wins the T20 World Cup. The champions dance it is. So yeah, there was a lot of camaraderie.
Okay. Yeah.
There was a lot of like a global following around this team. So much so that they backed themselves to go all the way to the final and beat the favorites to win the tournament at the time. I mean, it was between England and India, and these guys actually trounced them. Carlos Brathwaite hit 4 sixes in a row, and I think that if the culture or the identity that was within that camp at that point in time wasn't there, I don't think he would have had the chutzpah or the drive to actually hit those 4 sixes in a row of Ben Stokes. But yeah, I mean, that's just a brief example of what culture, strategy, and identity, a cultural identity, means to different team dynamics. And it's certainly the case with other sporting codes as well.
I saw Dwayne Bravo actually do that champion dance live when the Paul Rocks, when he played for the Paul Rocks. It was quite funny. He went on stage and the guys started playing, or Dalen Oliver and them started playing the song for them. He was one of the MCs. And he got on stage and he started dancing and he started singing and singing champion to everybody. So that was it was quite cool to actually see that live and see how they are outside the team environment. But the Paul Rocks are a good example of good team culture as well, because when you look at the way they won the tournament in the last Mzansi Super League, the culture was so embedded within the whole infrastructure. So the whole point of this is, from the fans right down through the CEO, right down to the media team, right down to the staff that working in the stadium, the culture was embedded through all of them. So you just saw that passion through all of them. It was a very community feel. There's an interview that I did recently when I speak about Boland, because Boland is obviously part of Paul Rocks in a way, obviously the body that owns the Paul Rocks in ultimately. And they spoke about the reason why they moved to the Boland, because of the community feel. Now they're trying to build a culture over there that runs from the team of the people, And in other sports, we can obviously talk about it too, because culture and identity is so important too. In other sports, you see it very clearly. Like, for example, I just recently watched the Sir Alex documentary. And I'm not going to spoil it for you, Ravi, because I know you still want to watch it. But there's one particular thing that came out of it. What came out of it was that the team, or Sir Alex, felt that the team was an identification of himself, or it was a mirror image of himself. So about the way he was as a person, as a player, and how he was brought up. He built his team around his own personality. And you could see that within the team. You can see that the way he treated certain players, how he was obviously aggressive with some, not with others. The team culture was about winning, never giving up, never giving in. The whole documentary's name is about not giving in and not giving up. His whole mentality was about that. And we know when we won the Champions League in 1998, it was all about that, scoring 2 goals in stoppage time to win the Champions League after being 1-0 down. So that was embedded in the culture of Manchester United for years and centuries. For years, possibly you could say for a century too, when Matt Busby was there as well. When he started over there, initially it was all about building youngsters, etc., from a young age. And so Alex said the first thing that he did when he got there was to embed the youngsters into the team and build the club from a youth level up. Is there any other example besides that, maybe in sporting world, that you can maybe give us, Ravi, where you see the same thing? Because I thought that was excellent to actually see how a club builds themselves up. It's the same thing with Pep Guardiola. Wherever he leaves, wherever he goes to, his identity, his philosophy is with him, and that team identity of the way he wants to play. If the player doesn't suit it, he lets them go. Or he doesn't play them. That's what it's about in sport.
No, 100%. Absolutely. And I think you hit the nail on the head there, Khalid. When it comes to the different coaches, especially in football, they bring their own sense of culture and identity. And they cascade that, they share that with the team. They do a lot of workshops around getting the team all literally on the same page, getting a good value system that's shared as well among key players. And I'll share this with you as well. And I said that it will be befitting to mention this, considering the British and Irish Lions tour, the rugby tour that comes every 12 years to South Africa. We'll be playing against the British and Irish Lions tour very soon. And one of the most poignant speeches that was ever told in a British and Irish Lions tour, those rugby fans that are watching the show tonight will remember this, is a gentleman by the name of Jim Telfer. Jim Telfer, Telfer. Just YouTube it, Google it, you'll find the speech. But effectively, he's addressing his players in a very small little banquet hall at a hotel, where he's talking about what it means to actually be a Lions player, to represent the British and Irish Lions. And it's absolutely important that they did that, because if you think about it, for them to have like a championship winning team, like a very strong contingent, it's quite difficult, because remember, you're bringing guys from England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales to play as a singular unit. Now, it's by some miracle they managed to pull off a win against some of the opposition that they play against. They're coming to South Africa. It's a very competitive environment to play rugby, of all things. And to get them all literally singing from the same hymn sheet is a very critical exercise, especially with the time frame that they're given. But Jim Telfer's speech, by far one of the most, I get goosebumps when I hear it. And I'm not even a British and Irish Lions fan, but I recommend it to all fans out there, even if you're not a rugby fan. Just check it out. It's one of those things where it kind of catalyzes and inspires the team to play for the badge, to do more than just getting a paycheck at the end of the day. But definitely, culture stems from a philosophical exercise. It's cascaded, it's shared among the team players. And it's up to the team, the players, to actually live out those cultures, live out those values. And that will actually bring the results home. And I think, coming back to the South African cricket example, we were all about playing smart and aggressive cricket, but then the culture sort of took a backseat. We only started talking about that stuff when it went south against England and a number of other bad results that went against us. So I think going forward, we need to take this quite seriously, especially considering we have new leadership taking the field. We've got Dean Elgar coming in as the Test captain. Obviously, Temba Bavuma is going to play a very critical role as captain for the T20 World Cup that's coming up very soon. And then, obviously, from a Test point of view, sorry, I mentioned Test already. But we've got basically Dean and Temba taking the helm at the moment, and they're going to play absolutely critical and vital roles for the next 3 to 5 years at least.
There's another example that I need to pick up on here. Is obviously the Springboks. When you look at the Springboks, the way they performed, when you look at the different years that we performed well, you start with 95. The team spirit, the team identity, the culture, the whole thing about having the fans behind you. It was after apartheid. It was in the middle of like having Nelson Mandela there, Francois Pienaar, his whole mentality of how he's going to involve the people of South Africa. They built a whole team identity and culture leading up. It was the team of the nation supposed to be. It was the team representing a whole nation. And that was so important about doing that. Then we saw again with Jake White, the type of mentality that he tried to breed within the Springbok team, that World Cup winning team. Then again, we saw it recently with Rassie. You saw the documentary. If you've watched the documentary Chasing the Sun, you'll hear about it, about the mentality that they wanted to play with, the emotion that they wanted to play with, how he made sure that they're focusing on the game and not getting distracted about outside things, about media things around the game. There was that whole thing that happened with regards to the racism, etc., where they were saying that the Springboks were racist, how Rassie controlled that and made sure that the people are not seeing that. We saw how he cried when he spoke about Mapimpi's story, making sure that you're playing for your brother, the number on the back of their shirt, having all the faces of people that you want, that are dear to you. All of those things drive you and drive your identity and drive your culture. And ultimately it creates something where you create a winning team. So many other examples of that as well, Ravi. Aditya said it in the comment section over here, where he says that obviously post the 2015 for England, they wanted to drive to the 2019 World Cup and win it. And they made sure that they built a brand and a team ethos and a culture that could win games. And not just win games, like dominate cricket games. And that you could see them shift in the way they moved towards that. Yes, okay, Australia, another example. After Sandpaper Gate, we saw the documentary, of course, where... how can I not remember now? Where the coach obviously spoke about it, and they all...
Gerald Lehman.
Yeah, not Lehman. After that, the current coach.
Justin Langer.
Justin Langer. When Justin Langer came onto when he spoke to the team and he spoke to them about how do you want to play, how do you want to play your style, how do you want to approach your cricket. We're not going to be pushovers, but at the same time, you want to be respectful. It obviously builds a culture within the team to say, this is how we're going to play our cricket, this is how we're going to approach it, and it affects your performances. Of course, it's going to be doing that. The whole point on why they ended up ball tampering was a whole accumulation of things that affected them. And it affected the culture and it affected the ethos of the team, specifically because there were cliques within the team. It can cause that type of things to happen, where there's a dominance of a certain group of people that make decisions. So it's very important that the culture and team is focused on. You spoke about the Proteas, of course. They had a whole culture camp. It was so important to have an identity, especially with BLM and everything that was happening around Black Lives Matter. In South Africa, particularly, it affected us in a different way. It didn't affect us in the same way as it did with America. It affected us in a different way. And the team actually came together for a culture camp to speak about what their identity, how they're going to play their cricket. Ultimately, the Proteas are going to be a team that is a representation of how Boucher thinks or how Boucher wants to coach his team. It's going to be an identity of him somewhat. Yes, when you're in an international setup, you don't have the same amount of time as you have with a club, like for example, or a franchise, to build a team culture over a long period of time. Obviously, if someone like Ashwell Prince would have had some time to build a culture at the Cobras, for example, and now you can take that over into Western Province. Same with Robbie P. Same with the other coaches that are going to take charge of other clubs as well. Of the other franchises or the other provinces. With the country or with your team, with your national side, you have a lot less time to build a culture. And that's where it's going to come in. That's where the challenge is going to come in of building a culture that has a winning mentality.
No, definitely. I mean, you hit the nail on the head again. It's going to take time. But then a gentleman in the comments was talking about CSK. I think he's referring to Chennai Super Kings having a fantastic culture. And, it's an interesting concept because effectively they're only together for a few short weeks until it's showtime, and then they're playing together as far as the tournament is concerned. And they certainly racked up a few good wins as well over the years. I think it's testament to leadership as well in that specific camp. It comes out to MS Dhoni and the various coaches they use. Stephen Fleming was brilliant as well as coach. So you have to bear that in mind that, yes, there's a lot of technical skills and aptitude that's needed, but culture starts with the dynamic that's brought in by the team, by the players themselves. And it needs to be lived out by each and every person. It needs to be driven by the leaders that are driving the culture and the performance of the team. So Dhoni, I think, was brilliant from that point of view, because if you think about it, by far he's the most decorated T20 player to come out of India or the world, in my opinion. I mean, 2007, he had a brilliant year. He won the T20 World Cup, the inaugural one in South Africa, with a very young Indian team. And then like a few short years later, he does the same thing with Chennai Super Kings in the IPL, in one of the earlier editions of it. So, I mean, it comes down to fantastically executed leadership. It comes down to a great team ethos and culture, shared values. And I think South Africa will certainly get there. A lot of people laugh at me when I say that, but I think we will get there. Just the problem is that as South Africans, we are very impatient people. We want things to happen like yesterday. And the thing is, when it comes to culture, identity, and the performances that come thereafter once it's established, that's all a process. It's going to take quite a bit of time to get there. If you ask me on a personal note, I don't think we will get there through the leadership of Mark Boucher, to be honest with you. I think too much has happened for us to reverse our fortunes at this juncture. But that only time will tell. I mean, we'll have to see how we do against the West Indies. We'll have to see how things pan out in Ireland. And, of course, the T20 World Cup that follows.
What's so key about that, for example, when you're talking about CSK, having a core leadership group consistently over a couple of seasons help them build that type of mentality. Same thing at Mumbai Indians, who have built a culture. Over the last 3 seasons or 4 seasons, they've had a certain core group of players that drive that culture within the team. So that's why it's easy for you to just meet up, or after you've played with various other teams, you come up, you meet up, you already have some familiarity with you walking into. Imagine if the teams changed every single year and you have a different team every year yes, you will have a different team majority, but I'm talking about, imagine if that whole 11 had to change every single year. Imagine what would happen then. How would you build a team culture like that? I mean, that's not going to be obviously easy. That's why I said, like, for example, I know I'm using the Cobras as an example, or Western Province as an example, but there's a core group of players they're building their team around. Obviously, you have the likes of Zubair Hamza, you've got Calvarino, you've got George Linder, you've got now Dazorzi, but out of the old teams I'm talking about from the last 3 years, yes. There's a core group of players that they built the team around, and they've stayed together. And that's very important, that you keep that core group of people around. Look at major franchises. You're a big WWE fan. I can maybe use this as an example, but you can see when you change too much too soon, what it can do. So initially when WWE was always really good, The Undertaker, the Stone Cold Steve Austins, there was that group of people. But what made it so popular was because over the years, they kept the core group of people that stuck around, and they just added extra people to the roster and slowly integrated them into the system. It wasn't just a massive change and then everybody's gone. where a couple of years ago that actually happened. They had to bring people back to bring the ratings back up again because they changed too much too quickly. There's no one to identify with now that all the older guys have left. So I know I'm using a far-fetched example over here, but that is how things work. I'll use it when I talk about a book. There's a book that I'm going to talk about to bring back up now. Imagine if you had so with regards to the difference between the Chronicles of Narnia, for example, and you look at that compared to a book like, let's say, Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter, right? There's a core group of characters that you follow throughout the story. They add a little bit to it, but there's a core group of characters. Whereas in Narnia, why it wasn't as successful, I feel, as other books that had multiple groups. They changed things around so much. The first book is completely different to the second book. The second book is completely different to the heroine in the third. And the fourth, they bring back the old people and then they try to change it up again. So it was a whole mix-up that I think that people can't really follow. And that's the problem, because people follow character, they follow an identity, a certain core group. So that's so important that we find that core group with South Africa in the South African team. I don't know if you can use any other example. If I'm using crappy examples, as explained to me, just tell me that, Ravi.
No, I think you're hitting the nail on the head there, Khalid. You need a core group of your regulars, for the lack of a better term, to sort of keep the culture, keep the values, keep those tactics at play. This is the way it's done. We need to sort of indoctrinate other people into our way of doing it. We've determined this is the way forward in terms of being successful. So it makes sense. If you think back to post 2006, so after the 4-3-8 game, what happened was Graham Smith had about 6 other guys he could rely on. That those were the regulars, and then you had 4, maybe 3 or 4 interchangeable guys. And then suddenly we arrive in 2008, 2009, where we go to Australia on an away tour. And suddenly we did the impossible, right? In fact, Supersport entitled it The Wizards of Oz. I think it's aptly entitled. If you haven't seen it, guys, check it out. It's on Supersport. Then catch up. Sorry to our friends in India. Unfortunately, I don't think you'll be able to access it via Supersport per se. But effectively, it was just a documentary which basically starred Mike Hazeman's accounts of what happened in that Australian tour. But again, when we arrived there, nobody expected South Africa to pull a rabbit out of the hat and actually beat Australia in Australia, because that hasn't been done before. The only side that really sort of could make the gods bleed, I suppose, in this instance was England after the 2005 Ashes win. Obviously, they did it at home. But England were the only guys that were really throwing punches that actually hurt. And then suddenly South Africa came on the scene. They came with this fairly young team. JP Duminy was about, I think, 24 years old. He came in very, very inexperienced. And suddenly he hit one of the greatest centuries I've ever seen in my life. I actually missed a bus. I was sitting in Austria in Europe, right? I missed a bus to go to Germany because of that man, because of that inning. So JP Duminy actually owes me about 100 euros for that. But anyways, I actually watched him. I sat there in an Irish bar in Austria. It was very random. I was the only guy there watching cricket, apart from the bartender who happened to be English. We were just sitting there watching this man play, and he was playing sublimely well. And for me, that was one of the greatest examples. And I think it comes back to having that unit of 5 or 6 guys in the team that you could count on. So if for example, if Steyn failed with the ball, you had Morne Morkel, right? You had a reliable opening pair. If Graham didn't score any runs, that time he was opening with Neil Mack. Neil Mack would come into the party. You had Jacques Callis, who was obviously in sublime form. The man belted 44 test centuries. I mean, that's incredible, right? So you always had a reliable person in the team. And I think what's happening right now is that we are unfortunately at a point where we're still figuring things out. I think we do have our regulars, to be fair, but we don't have that winning unit, that unit that can actually tear through any batting lineup at the moment, or it could reverse swing a ball where we need the guy to do it, or we need a guy to actually take on an attack as a batsman. We're still finding our feet in many instances, but I think that will come. That will definitely come. Just it's going to take some time and patience. We had a mass exodus of really talented people. That's a problem.
Yeah.
Since Smith, okay, so let's just be fair now. So since I would say when it started with Cullis, and there was Cullis in this succession. Cullis, Smith was 2014. He retired, right? Then you had a mass exodus. Then you obviously had Boucher, who had the tragic incident in England where the bail went into his eye, right? And then suddenly you saw this plethora of highly talented South African cricketers having to retire or give up the game incidentally. And now we're at a position where there was a mass exodus of these key talents. And now you basically got like a sort of a clean slate or blank canvas, or however you look at it. And this is going to be, unfortunately, it's going to take a while for us to see some very fruitful away results to come through. Personally, I think, assuming we get our tactics right, you get the right set of players, we'll probably only see those big wins come up in the next 3 to 5 years, in my opinion. But other people might have a differing opinion altogether.
Yeah, I mean, these are some comments that I want to highlight over here in the chat. Is that the best thing about the Springboks is that they didn't deviate from their inherent strength, physical rugby, which is the culture the Proteas need to find out what is their inherent strength. So that's also very important. You have to think about like the previous podcast show that we had last week, where we spoke about going back to basics. That's exactly what they need to do. To go back to basics and find that culture that they want to play with. And Lubabalo obviously saying that at the center of a team's identity and culture, there's coaching philosophy that needs to then link the two mentioned above, which is very important as well. And I think a coach plays a massive role. That's why I mentioned that about coaches. The team ultimately formulates identity based on the coach. Jurgen Klopp, what he did at Liverpool, same thing. I think what he did at Dortmund was excellent. The way he built a culture of winning. He didn't have the best players at Dortmund, for example. He created superstars at Dortmund. He had very talented players, but he helped highlight their talent by investing into a culture where they play for him. And if you talk to any player that's played under Jurgen Klopp, they would talk about how much passion they have to play for him. I see over here in the comment section again, Jeff Toyana should be Proteas coach. If you listen to the players, the way players talk about Jeffrey Toyana, you would actually think that maybe this is the right guy to take the Proteas forward, or to in my opinion, at least he should have a top tier team to coach. It was unfortunate that he didn't have a top tier team last season. It was mind boggling to me that he didn't have a franchise. The Lions team he coached had an excellent team culture and identity. He's like Jurgen Klopp. CSA should give him a chance and stop being stubborn. And I thought that was going to happen. Back when Russell Domingo resigned, I was writing columns about how we need to find the next youngsters that we can breed into the side. That was still when we had the likes of Morkel and Steyn and JP and Faf and AB and all of these guys still in the team. And I was talking about when Domingo left, they were talking about Jeffrey Toyana possibly getting the job, and they never went with it. I thought that Jeffrey thought himself that he would be getting the job, and it didn't go his way. But then you would be building it. You would have your core group of players of experience and building youngsters around him. I mean, my first ever CSA T20, CSA awards that I've attended, I think it was at the end of 2016. Might have been 2016 or 2017. But the first one that I attended back then, Calvareno won Newcomer of the Year. I mean, domestic Newcomer of the Year. Back then already. I mean, coming onto the scene in his first season playing for the Cobras, he was excellent. By that time, you should have already identified that this boy is a player for the future. Put him into a squad with a whole lot of older guys that are retiring. You know who's going to replace Amla. They would have obviously had in their brain already, these are the three batsmen, maybe KP, Zubair Hamza, Reinath Fatunda wasn't on the scene yet, but there would have been other players as well, Rassie van der Dis and other players that they all, Riza Hendricks, that they would have looked at and said, okay, these guys are going to replace, for example, Amla. Let's put him into the squad. Who's going to replace Steyn as our fast bowler? Put him into the squad. Not necessarily play them in games if you're going to trust your team, but they could learn so much by just being in the squad and going with him. And that was my importance, is that they didn't do it quick enough. They waited too late to decide to bring in new players. Now we're sitting with a situation where there's not a lot of experience from an international level. So it's so important to work a team around your core team of culture. And that's why we need these people involved in cricket. So happy that we can see Vernon and we can see the likes of Amla and we can see the likes of Kyle Abbott and all of these guys back in domestic cricket, because they're going to give these players so much extra confidence and so much insight that they can learn from. And particularly, they are joining teams that have a core group of youngsters in their side that can learn from them. So it's going to be very interesting to see how domestic cricket and things go from there. It was a very, very talented side back then, and it's a pity that they didn't take full advantage of that, Ravi. That's what made someone like Ferguson so great over 26 years. It's the fact that he could change teams and keep the culture going. Exactly. Excellent succession planning. Excellent succession planning.
We didn't do it. That's the problem. We had such a good thing going for so long, from 2008-09, going all the way up until 2016. We had a good thing going. And then suddenly we didn't realize, these guys have to go at some point. Either they retire or they sign a cold pack or whatever. Whatever the circumstances were that were dealt at the time, they went for it. And then they left. And then we were stuck with trying to figure out how do we fill these massive gaps. These aren't Mickey Mouse positions. I mean, we're talking about filling a void left by Hashim Amla still till this day, right? We still haven't figured it out, right? A guy like Jacques Kallis, it was difficult to even consider replacing a talent like Jacques Kallis because the man did everything for you, right? Batting, bowling, even in the field, he's got broken record in terms of slip catches, right? So you have to ask yourself, how, when we talk succession planning, is it just like ticking a box, or is the people that we know for certain are actually going to punch above their weight? They're actually going to bring home the bacon and bring the best possible results out there. Reina van Tonder, I wrote an article about this guy. I'm convinced that he's going to be a great part of our plans for the next 5 years. Mark my words, this man is a champion. He's going to break records this point. I guarantee you that.
They're lucky at the moment, South Africa. We're very lucky that the core group, or some majority of the core group that were in that World Cup winning side in 2012, right? It was 2012, yeah. In 2012, the core of that group, Aiden Markram, KG Rabada, Andile Peklikwayo, Lungi Ngidi. Okay, Lungi Ngidi wasn't 100% part of it, but at least that core group of players that were in there and in and around are making waves on the scene. So we've got a core group of players that they can build a team around. Now, currently, we've got Quinny, we've got Aiden, we've got KG, you've got now Lungi, you've got Andile. These are youngsters that have been in the setup for a long time. They're kind of a core group of players from an international perspective that can help the transition to guys like Reina van Tonder, Calvin Reina, the next generation of superstars, Zubair Hamza, whoever the case may be, who you want to pick in the side. And building a team around them is very important. They might make sure that they take advantage of the fact that they've got these core groups of players and make sure that we breed in youngsters when these players are still at their peak. That we don't do it too late. I don't want to see youngsters being bred into the team when KG is retiring. That's not. I wouldn't want that to obviously happen. The best time for them to learn from KG right now is now, when he's
in his prime.
In his prime at the moment.
No, in KG, I know for certain he's going to break Dale Sain's record. I've got in the back of my mind, I'll put money on it even, and you guys can even come back to this recording when the KG does it. But I agree, this is the time to bleed in the youngsters, as it were. Fill those gaps now. We know for a fact that, like, from a batting point of view, guys like Rassie, but he's brilliant. I've got no beef with him. He's fantastic. He's done wonders for the Proteas since he's arrived. But we know that in 5-6 years from now, more than likely he's not going to be on the scene. He's not going to be there. So we need to think 5 steps ahead now and start bringing these youngsters in. You're right, Reina Fatonda, Kyle Verena. These are the guys we need to consider looking at, because I think they're going to play a pivotal role in our test success, and certainly in white ball as well. We have to bear that in mind. And I like the fact that I think we speak about batting units, right? We spoke about team cohesion and units. I think the one sort of partnership that's actually working very well, while I would have preferred it to be with the ball, they're actually with the bat, because we've got Alga and Markram. I think if anything that has gone wrong for us, this is the one thing that's actually been a shining light. Their partnership has been great. I've got no disputes with him whatsoever. These guys are always racking up good performances at a domestic level and an international level. It would be very foolhardy to consider any other pair at the moment to open the batting. And I think that it basically comes down to one of those guys to start firing up and scoring the big one. But yeah, I think I'm comforted to know that they're opening the batting for us. But I think one of the biggest pain points right now is obviously our top six. But a lot of people, we tend to be negative with the result overall, but I think we're forgetting the fact that Temba performed sublimely well in Pakistan as well. I think he had a crazy average of over 50 during that Pakistan tour as well. So I think we've got some good milestones there. We've got some good gems. I think things are working out for the best. Or they got the makings of it.
Thanks, Dix, for the super chat. The only comment I see from you here is that Sir Arsene Wenger is better than Sir Alex Ferguson, according to you. So that's the only one that I have over here for you. So thanks a lot for the super chat, Dix. I really appreciate that.
He goes on further to say Sir Arsene Wenger is better than Sir Alex. No, my friend.
Yeah, that's what I put up on the screen right now. So guys, please subscribe to the channel, of course. Click that notification bell, smash that like button if you're enjoying the chat. Like I said before, our podcast show is going forward. To the guys that don't know, we're going to have a conversation one-on-one, me and a co-host, and we're going to be chatting. Fridays will be our big panel discussions on our daily show, where we're going to bring a big panel on the team on the screen. It's supposed to be something that you guys look forward to. We can't have it every single day. Perhaps in between, I will have a massive panel podcast show when we're talking about a serious topic that we need to discuss. But for now, I want to just be talking about, and I want my personality and obviously the person that's on the screen with me, my guest, our personalities to obviously link up, and you guys get to know a little bit more about us and see why we have connected over the time. Now, Ravi, I want to ask you, seeing that this is also part of culture, and it's obviously about identity, and everybody has a culture within them. But what is the biggest culture shock that you've ever had in your time on this earth?
Sorry, I didn't catch that last bit. Sorry, you broke up for a second there.
I said, what is the biggest culture shock that you've ever experienced in your time on this earth?
Oh boy, that's a question and a half. Oh my goodness. Gosh, I have to come back to you on that one. What is the biggest? I'll tell you this though. I went to Loftus Festival for the first time in 2019, and it was weird for them because I went to this very Lani executive box where the Ruperts tend to go quite often. And, till this day, it's very seldom you see an Indian guy at a rugby stadium, unless you're rooting for the Sharks and it's in Durban. But at Loftus Festival, the Indian guy coming into the box, I think that was a bit of a culture shocker there. I think they were blown away by the fact that I knew what was going on with the game. So I think conversely, that was a culture shock as well. And I think what is a major surprise for me is having actually seen cricket in other countries as well. I've seen cricket in the Caribbean. I've seen cricket in the UK. I've seen cricket, obviously, in South Africa. And one thing I have to say is that the level of information or how well informed cricket fans are in the global game, it's astonishing to me. I got a brief historical overview from a guy sitting I was sitting next to at Lords, and he was telling me about events that he saw that took place 33 years ago, way before my lifetime, or in my lifetime, I should say, which is incredible, which is absolutely incredible. I mean, and it's amazing what you find in your travels when watching certain games. Even in the Caribbean, I went to the Queens Park Oval as a little boy, and the amount of stories you hear about, the impending rebel tours that were coming to South Africa from the West Indies, it was absolutely crazy. So I think when it comes to cricket, when it comes to watching the game, it's always important to pay attention to the history behind it as well, and why certain things are the way they are. There's certain legacy items that are there. So I think it's important as fans just to ask those questions, just to learn a little bit more about the game. You'll be doing yourself a world of good in that respect.
Yeah, it's like when I was obviously a lot younger though. First time we went to for example, to Holland for the first time as a kid. It was very sunny in South Africa. My parents always tell me this story, but it's very sunny in South Africa, probably 30, 35, almost 40 degrees here. And we went on the plane all in our shorts, and it's hot. We get off, we get on the plane in Holland, and it's like freezing cold. And we had to go and obviously put on things in the before we got to the airport. But I think going to the Netherlands as a young kid was probably a culture shock for me, because you come from a country that is rugby and cricket mad, and you go into a country where rugby and cricket is non-existent almost, and judo is one of the biggest sports in Holland, the second biggest sport in Holland, and second biggest sport in Europe at the time when I was there. Judo players were like celebrities over there, and football was crazy. Probably the biggest culture shock was the Euros, when I fell in love with the Netherlands team because of the people in Holland, the way how passionate they were about the team. If you walked outside your house, for example, people would paint their houses orange during the Euros, the grass orange. Like they'll have things all up over the walls and the fences supporting their team. It's crazy. I was like, what?
Nuts. But I love it.
Everything is different. Everything is different. It's awesome. It's amazing. It's like, and it's about adaptability. You have to adapt to people's culture. And because the first questions that I was getting as a kid when I was at school, is there do you have a pet lion? Is there a lion in your backyard? Or do you have monkeys as a pet? Or like legitimate questions people were asking me. That was crazy. It just shows that people.
It's amazing. It's amazing. You get those kind of questions all the time. But the one place where I never got those kind of questions, ironically, was New York City. It seemed that they knew more about South Africa than I did. They were like, yeah, you guys speak Xhosa, we know Trevor Noah, all of those things. And I was like, geez, okay, you guys are well informed of what's going on in South Africa than I thought. And then they explained that, the dynamics are different for every country. For every state in America. So if you go as far as Memphis, Tennessee, or you go somewhere in the Midwest, they're probably going to think that you have a monkey or a lion walking around outside, or a crocodile,
I think for any overseas person that came down here for the World Cup in 2010 would have had a massive culture shock, because the Vuvuzela, for example, how has that traveled all around the world? Still used today.
I was saying the other day, that was one of the best parts of our World Cup. It was intrinsically our own World Cup because of the Vuvuzela. Because now you don't hear it anymore. Now, you hear it in South African games, sure, but you don't hear it in the international game again, which is sad. I think the 2010 World Cup was by far one of the greatest pieces of history.
Do you know what was funny? I recently watched Dragon Ball Z Super, right? I completed it, and in one of the episodes, Beerus. Have you watched Super yet?
I've been watching bits and pieces of it. I was actually watching the Cell saga. So we're talking like 20 years ago.
Oh, you're talking DBZ. Yeah, you're talking
back
Dragon
in the
Ball
day.
Z.
Yeah.
So have you watched the new stuff yet? Super. Have you watched the?
I've been watching a bits and pieces of it. I know who Beerus is. Beerus is that
Yes.
like Egyptian cat-looking dude, right?
God,
The
yeah.
purple guy. Yeah.
Apparently it was based on his it was based on the guy that created it. He has a cat, and apparently the character was based on him. I saw that somewhere doing some research. But what was funny about it was he mentions they have this battle at the stadium. I mean, not the stadium. They built a stadium to have this final battle, of course, for the universes, between the different universes. And I think it was then when Pierre said, "Go fetch my vuvuzela." So that was hilarious. I can't remember who said it,
Now
if it
I'm
was
going to
him
be
or not.
watching that.
Yeah, I
I'll be
can't
getting
remember who it
into
was and when it was in the show, but I just remember that it was so funny. I was like, I laughed. I was like,
Hey,
"Vuvuzela,
what's
it
going
traveled
on
up."
in Dragon Ball now? So when I last watched Dragon Ball, right,
Yeah.
it was Dragon Ball GT. This is years ago. So at that point, they reached Super Saiyan 4, right, where they could revert back to a monkey-like form, right? So now, what happened after that? Did they become more powerful, I presume?
So it's called the canon universe, right? Which starts with Dragon Ball. That's when Goku was a kid and a monkey, and he meets Bulma for the first time. That was like in 1980s, I think, right? Then they had Dragon Ball Z, which is the Cell Saga and Frieza Saga and Buu and all of that stuff, right? I don't know if you watched till the end of DBZ. Right at the end of DBZ, there's a if you watch like the after credit scene, Goku goes and finds the good version of Boo because they wished it back. They asked for him to be reincarnated as a good person, and he goes and
Yes.
finds him and goes off with him and goes and train. You can
Yeah.
almost ignore that part because they created Dragon Ball GT after that, which wasn't by the same creators and story writers. So that is almost out of the canon universe. Then I think 20 years later, after DBZ ended, they created Dragon Ball Super. They first created a movie, which was basically this, yeah, a movie basically based on the gods and whatever the case may be. And then they did a year or two after that, they created the Dragon Ball Super, which is the series, and they just took that movie part and they created it, they stretched it out for the first basically season of Dragon Ball Z. So Dragon Ball Super is now the current where you are now, where Goku.
Okay.
So that
So,
Super Saiyan
so are
4
they,
and all of that stuff that you
it's
saw
gone now.
from GT, it's not part of the actual universe, canon universe.
So what are they? Are they Super Saiyan 2 then? Is it like after Cell or is it before all of that?
So with Dragon Ball Super, Goku could only turn into a Super Saiyan 3. That was the max.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So now in
It was after
Super,
Majin Buu.
yes, it's after Majin
Yeah.
Buu, yes. And Goku's the
Okay.
only one that could change into a Super
So
Saiyan 3
GT
at the
is
time.
gone. There's no 4
GT
now.
doesn't GT doesn't exist within the canon. Now,
Okay.
look here, Dragon Ball Z. Dragon Ball Z is not my favorite anime of all time. My favorite anime of all time is Naruto. I just that I didn't really have. I wanted to try it. My friend said I should try out. Actually, the twins. Jessica told me to try it out, and so I said I'll try Super. And because I was over DBZ because it was just so long and dragging, and the same things over and over and over again.
Yeah, like the
so
same fight was like for 2 weeks, man. Like literally,
exactly.
it's like they're talking crap for like 1 week, and then
Yeah.
week 2 they like start fighting. It's like, okay.
Yeah, so Dex, I want you guys to tell me in the comment section which animes I should try next. I heard about One Piece. I tried to watch Bleach. I didn't really get into it.
One Punch
It wasn't
Man is
something
awesome though. I like One Punch Man.
One Punch Man. Okay,
Yeah.
I see One Piece over here in the comment section. I will try One Piece. I heard about it. I think it's
I don't
about
know about
pirates,
One
isn't it?
Piece.
I think it's about pirates or something.
No idea. No idea what
Yeah,
One Piece
I will
is.
try to watch One Piece. I heard good things about it. I watched Death Note already. Death Note was awesome. Very different type of buzz. But I'm a big Naruto fan because of when I was growing up, when I was 14, I think it was 14 or something, I discovered Naruto for the first time. And I just fell in love with the idea of it, the ninjutsu, ninjas. I was always a big fan of karate
Well,
and ninjas. And
you got a
all
Netflix
that
account, right? You got a Netflix
stuff.
account.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
So Netflix actually put out in December. They put out the X-Men anime version, and they put out the Wolverine anime version as well. Those look pretty cool. Although I will say the X-Men
Is it
animated
on
was
Netflix?
it's on Netflix, dude. Check it
Because
out.
my cousin told me that I must watch the X-Men
Now you
animation
got plans tonight.
anime. Well,
Now you
bro,
got plans.
you
Now you
shouldn't have
got
told me that. You shouldn't have
now
told me
you
that.
have plans
I'm
tonight.
currently
You have
watch.
plans.
I'm currently watching this weird. I don't have anything to watch currently because Blacklist stopped. I'm finished with all the Blacklist that I have available to me. Right, so Blacklist stopped. I'm waiting for the next episode to come out of Blacklist. So I finished all the other series that I was busy with. So now I'm like, I'm looking for things to watch. I'm watching. Don't laugh at me now, but I'm watching the show called Lockdown, which is about a woman in a prison in South Africa. It's like the
Lucky yeah.
craziest. It's like
Lucky yeah.
so it's about prison like prisoners, women prisoners, and there's a whole drama that goes behind it. And I'm watching that currently because I saw others random. I was like, oh, this is a South African thing. It's rated well. Let me check it out. Good, very good acting, I must say. But I'm looking for something new, so I'm gonna go to Netflix now and see because I originally watched it in Japanese, the X-Men
Okay.
anime. Apparently, it's a lot better than the original animated series. So
I
and
don't
that's
think this is
difficult
the
to
one.
be.
You know the one with a really cool intro, the Japanese intro. No.
That's the original one.
That's next level.
that was
I've got
that
the
was
series.
classic.
Yeah, but the anime one, there was two different versions of it. So I think this is the second version. But the way they've done it is brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. I would like to have seen a different X-Men cast in a way, which featured a little bit more of Gambit, but that's just my 5 cents around it. But then there's the Wolverine series, which is like your classic anime, the big eyes. It looks okay. The aesthetics are all right. But the Wolverine version on the X-Men show is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. You should check it out.
So there we go. Thank you. Scotty is not great. Logan was my favorite. Oh, I was always a big Wolverine fan as a kid. So that's like I can't I
Hold
can't
on.
I can't wait. I can't wait for Marvel to bring out
I'm gonna
an
give the
X-Men.
full. I'm giving you the Pogba finger wave there, Mister Riff.
Who are you?
Mister Riff.
Which one are you? Gambit.
No. I can't.
Oh.
The thing
A
about
lot of
Gambit,
people from
right,
your age group love Gambit. You know
they
that.
do.
Like a
I
lot.
don't blame them. I don't blame. There was a nice storyline with Logan and Gambit in the comic book, so they
Mm.
had some synergies between the two of them. Those two characters, story arcs. But the thing which perplexes me about Gambit, Khalid, is that Gambit can pick up any object, a rock, a stone, or
Yeah, no, he was.
but he takes like a pack of cards and heats it up and throws it at people. How is that effective? Tell me that. How is that effective? How is that going to kill somebody? Take like a table or something and just throw that shit there, and then it explodes.
Yeah,
Rogue
I
is
was.
more than Logan. Jesus, okay. This guy's coming to play.
Who's your favorite character from X-Men?
It's a tough one, man. It really is difficult. I don't have a specifically favorite character, but I'll say this though. I feel that uh, Scott Summers, who plays Cyclops, he's a much more complicated character in the comic books than what he's portrayed on in that animated show. So I like the fact that he and Logan will always have fights and stuff, which is cool. We spoke about team culture. That's a big example of culture not going
Exactly
really well.
my point. It all comes back to it, bro.
It always come back to it,
X-Men
right?
is all about team
And then,
culture, like
and then Professor
100%.
Charles Xavier's like, no, guys, we need to fight like that. We need to keep the peace here, keep the peace, But funnily
Yeah.
enough, one of my favorite characters was Colossus. Actually, I liked that Ileana storyline where they went to the Russia and they fought Omega Red and stuff like that. I thought that was a pretty cool storyline. Deadpool for me is actually my favorite. He's not really an X-Men, but he's my
Yeah.
favorite character from the X-Men universe.
He's like a rogue X-Men in a way.
He's so cool. I mean, I
Yeah.
like the fact Ryan Reynolds and Marvel. Thank you for making Deadpool the way he is now.
The way
because
they
that's
did it, yes.
exactly-
What is your
because
opinion
that-
on? So that's important. Marvel as a universe, what they've done with regards to a culture as well. They built a culture
Brilliant.
and an identity from the start right through for the whole series. It's also very important over there. But I wanted to ask you, what's your opinion on what's his name again? Hugh Jackman as well as Logan. I mean, me personally, I did not like him as Logan from a from as a holistically. He looked the part with like the facial structure and stuff, but he was too tall. His voice wasn't gruff enough. He didn't have that attitude that I liked from Logan. Logan had a proper chip
Very
on his
gentle.
shoulder. No, Logan. Yeah, he was.
He was very gentle. Like he looked very.
Yeah, he was
like
very gentle. Like his voice, even it's not rough. Like I think that a guy like Tom Hardy would probably be a better Logan because he's the same
I
stature,
think that's a
height.
brilliant idea. That's a brilliant call. I have my doubts that they would cast him as Logan as well as him playing
Yeah, they
Johnny
won't
Mnemonic.
do it.
I don't
Yeah,
think that will happen.
unfortunately.
Uh, but I agree with you. So my view on Hugh Jackman, I think that it's like a fine wine. It gets better with time. Or cheese. I think in your case, it gets
Yeah,
better with time if you're a cheese fanatic, right? But the truth is that the very first movie of X-Men back in 2000, I remember I was in matric that year, right? So it was an absolute treat. I was like, as soon as I saw the trailer, I was like, we're going to watch this movie. And that was a point in time because we had
what grade was
superhero
I?
movies, but that time it was, the idea of an X-Men movie was like, was absolutely off the chain. We were like, no, we need to see this thing, man. And the thing is, they could have put anything on the screen. They could have put Jackman in yellow spandex, and we would have loved it, right? Because we never saw that a cinematic version of the X-Men. But why I say it got better with time is that Jackman was severely underprepared by his own admission. This is why I like Hugh Jackman. He's very much what you see is what
Honest.
you get, right? He's honest. He'll tell you, I was severely underprepared for that role. He said his words that I quote. He said that when they told him about a character called Wolverine, he thought the brow was a wolf, right? So he was carrying on like a wolf. He didn't even know. He didn't even read a single comic book, right? It's only after they were like, Brian Singer was like, no, here's a comic book, read this thing. Then he was like, oh, snap. Okay, so I obviously took the wrong view on all of this.
He
And his
thought he must be
physique was
Thriller
obviously,
Wolf. He thought he must be a werewolf like
he must be a
Thriller.
wolf, like
He
a
was
werewolf.
about to go.
Exactly. Yeah, really, yeah. Like the whole Michael Jackson thing got going on. So he thought that that's what he needed to do. And obviously Brian Singer was like, no, bro, you need to do some normal. And then
Yeah,
obviously
bro.
from a physique point of view, he was very skinny and as opposed to muscular, so they had to do a lot of work with him in a very
It was
short
fine
space of
for
time.
Logan, the movie Logan, because he's older. So it's all
No.
right.
So
Yeah.
I'm talking about the 2000. Like I'm talking about the
Yeah, no,
very
I
first
know.
movie.
I know, yeah.
Yeah.
I was very disappointed with his casting.
Yeah.
You need to have Wolverine was always an edgy character. He had an attitude, a proper
Yeah.
problem. Like he had an
I
attitude, a
wasn't
chip on his shoulder.
disappointed
He was
with him.
always upset and angry.
I wasn't
I
though.
was disappointed.
I wasn't irritated with him.
I
I was
hope they'd
irritated
fix it
with
for
Rogue.
Marvel.
I felt Rogue wasn't the way she was supposed to be portrayed. Anna Paquin played Rogue, and I felt Rogue needed to be very seductive and had like a nice like feminine outlook on things. Like she was out there, and I felt this one is like very like, oh, I'm scared I'm gonna kill her, bro. Which is
Wasn't
part of the
she?
character.
If I remember, wasn't she supposed to be like badass? Like, have like a. I don't know how to explain it, man. Who can I explain it to be perfect as? But like, she was supposed to be like badass in a way, like a rebel type of cool girl, but it's not like.
So you are gonna love this, right? So you know the story that Marvel is going to bring the X-Men universe to the MCU now, right? Because of Fox being bought by.
Yes.
I'm
so excited. I hope they get the proper yellow suits and everything. Like
I'm pumped. I'm pumped for it. I'm excited. So here's the deal, right? So Captain Marvel, they've already given a title to the movie. It's the Captain Marvels or something like that, or the Marvels.
Yeah.
The Marvels.
Yes.
So what's going to happen is that, and it's akin with the storyline from the comic books, where Rogue actually takes Miss Marvel's powers from her, right?
No flip.
For some odd reason, right? So for the Brotherhood of the Evil Mutants, which includes Magneto and those guys. So the plan was, I'm going to take your powers from you because she's got the ability to take the powers away from them. So they want to bring Rogue in to do that to one of the Marvel's characters, and I think Miss Marvel, who's going to be portrayed by I think an 18-year-old Muslim girl, which is the new
Mm-hmm.
story arc. Because Miss Marvel, when I was a kid, was this blonde chick with these massive boobs, right? And she had the scarf around her neck, and she used to run around her. Now they changed the story arc completely. Now it's a very semi-conservative Muslim girl from New York that's got the garba and everything, right? So
Interesting. That's very
yeah, so
interesting.
that's very interesting. So which is
Eid
cool. I think
Mubarak.
it's Eid Mubarak. Eid Mubarak.
It's
So
close.
yeah. So apparently, I have a feeling that Rogue might actually take her powers temporarily and somehow have the powers on a permanent basis, which is how Rogue is supposed to be. She's supposed to have the ability to absorb powers, but also have super strength and flight.
I need to like rewatch all of that again. Like I have to take myself back to my childhood to watch it all again, and get hold of that animated series and watch it.
X-Men 1992, best Marvel series.
Best one of the it's like maybe it's because I was young and I remember it being. But I always used to remember my cousin always watching it. I always mention him on this when we have these talks. But he was watching it while I was watching the original animated Spider-Man and Superman and Batman at the time. But anyway, guys, that's all we have for you today. Ravi, thanks a lot for coming on the show for this new look podcast that we'll be doing. I hope you guys enjoy it. We don't want to make it only about cricket. We want to be able to connect with you guys on so many other levels as well. And it will come around to cricket. Like we spoke about team culture today, and I think we got it across how important team culture and identity is, and how it can be applied to all walks of life, not just cricket itself and building team culture. So that is awesome to be able to do that with you guys. Tell all your friends and family if they don't want to watch any of the other things on Cricket Fanatics Magazine. Maybe this podcast show will relate to them. So tell them to come over here because we won't be just talking about cricket. Thanks a lot for tuning in, everybody, and we'll see you again tomorrow with another daily show. Take care and see you too, Ravi. I'll chat to you very, very soon.